Hi there, Maggie here again, coming at you with the latest episode on Thoughts from a Changing Mind. Thank you so much for all the people who watched the previous video, and some of you commented, and they've all been so far very positive comments and very sweet and affirming, so thank you so much for that. I really do appreciate it. Hopefully, as time goes on, more people will see that video and may see this video too. And, you know, it'll all form part of that picture I was talking about in the last one about wanting to help people and just chronicle my changes and also just, you know, as I say, think out loud about certain things that I've come across and that have an effect on me. So I'm probably going to have an effect on someone in a similar situation. As I say, thank you so much for those who have watched it. I did a previous video outside of this series that talked about the difference between kindness and using the correct pronouns. And I think because of some of the feedback I got, I'm going to revisit that a little bit and expand on it, because I think it's important with not only how we deal with how we are as, you know, people of the transgender community, but also how we deal with people who come in contact with us and how we can appreciate how those people think, even if it's not in a way that we would necessarily agree with, or, you know, we would hope they would think a different way. So I'm going to hopefully just expand on that a little. Just to start off with, I mean, I know personally how important being female in my mind is to me, how important it is that people treat me as a female, even if they don't necessarily see me as that. I know for a lot of people it's extremely stressful to them, and it's very important to them that they present as a believable female, and they almost want to feel as though that no one would see them as anything other than wholly female. And I get that entirely. I mean, for me, one of the most important early stages for me was when I was able to reapply for my driving license, and I was able to change my sex on there from male to female. It's just one word on a document, and all my other documents, and including that same document, still has my old first name. So it's a very minor detail, but it's still something that meant the world to me. And I know that for some people, having the correct pronoun used means the world to them. It's something that builds them up. It's something that moves them forward, and they feel incredibly hurt and minimized if that isn't used. So part of what I want to talk about here is how other people can help with that, how we can help ourselves with maybe not getting too upset in a lot of the circumstances when a mistaken pronoun is used. And I understand there are times, though, that the behavior behind that mistaken pronoun is actually showing that it's not a mistake, it's actually done on purpose, and that's a whole different ball game. But just to use a couple of examples from my own personal experience, I mean, I was in a store a while back. I was behind a lady who had a cart full of groceries and other bits and bobs, and she was trying to work through it all, and was clearly, her mind was just all in her cart. But she noticed me behind, and I only had one item, and she said, "Oh, that's right, you go ahead," and was ever so sweet, you know, let me go ahead of her so I wasn't being held up by her working on everything else. And I went to where the lady was behind the checkout, and as I did that, the first lady just put something up on the counter, presumably to be dealt with later, and the lady behind the checkout got a little bit confused as to who she should be serving, and the lady customer, just without looking up from her cart, said, "Oh, it's okay, go ahead and serve him first." And there I was, pretty much as I am now, dressed with dress and makeup and earrings and everything else. And at the time, it would have been very, very simple for me to get incredibly hurt and maybe feel as though, I should defend myself. But for me, the most important thing was the kindness that she showed by allowing me to go ahead of her. And that was more important than her necessarily using the correct pronoun. She was probably so engrossed in everything else that was going on. You can tell from my voice, I haven't got a particularly female voice. I'm, as I've mentioned before, proudly trans female. I know that I'm not, 100% presentable so that people just have no idea I'm a man. That's not, that's not an element yet. So it's very easy when people get sidetracked or distracted for them to make that kind of mistake. And for me, as I said, the kindness was more important. Another example was recently I had a medical procedure. I had a lump on my neck here, and I went in to have it taken out, and it's all fine, by the way. It's just a sebaceous cyst, and it's all great. They did a great job with it. The people in the hospital are so nice. They were so sweet and very helpful, and our medical staff are just brilliant. We underestimate them all the time. But you turn up there and you're told not to have any makeup on, not to have any jewelry, not to have anything. You've got to wear a mask. You've in the gorgeous, sexy hospital gown and this horrid little bonnet thing you put on your hair. And again, with my voice, it was very, very simple. And the fact that all my legal name was on all the documents again, it was very, very simple for them to accidentally, mistakenly use the correct pronoun, the incorrect pronoun and the wrong name. And again, it would have been very, very simple for me to be incredibly hurt, very combative, if you like, because they hadn't taken the time to check things out, and that, I'm female and my name is Maggie and that they should be doing this. Again, for me personally, their kindness and their attention was far more important to me, and they had no way of knowing, without stopping what they were doing and checking everything again, of knowing that I was female. So in that instance, I very gently and very kindly said, "Oh, no, actually, just to remind you, my name's Maggie, and if I could use she and her." And they were just so, they were apologetic, and they just said, "Oh, yes, absolutely fine." And it was no problem from then on. And we went on, as I say, it was no problem from then on, and it was a great interaction. It could have been so different. One of the people who saw my last video said about how sometimes they get put off by people, and I think I touched on this when I said before that I didn't think of myself as an activist, that they feel that he's put off by people who feel they have to almost shame or punish someone who uses the incorrect pronoun or shows a lack of understanding about someone in our community. And it can cause greater distance and disharmony because of the way that we react to other people's misuse of pronouns and so on. And I suppose I'm of the school that believes that it's far more important to deal with people with an open hand and offer assistance and education and understanding of their position than it is to come at them with a clenched fist of conflict and controversy. And, it's very, very easy and so to say, you should know better, this is not right, you should be more inclusive, more understanding of us, you don't understand how hurtful it is of what you've just said. And it can be incredibly hurtful, I understand that. But at the same time, a lot of people don't understand how hurtful it is. They don't understand us at all. All they're fed with is the fear of misinformation or lack of information about us, or a lack of direct contact with us. And each interaction that we have with anyone who might use the wrong pronoun or have questions is an opportunity for us to bridge that gap rather than make the gap wider. I honestly believe that we should use that opportunity to understand their position and help them at least meet us halfway. Whether they do then is entirely up to them. We may never agree on everything. It's not possible. I mean, we can't agree with everyone. But if we at least give them the chance to understand us more, to accept us more, to be more inclusive, surely that's going to help us more in the long term than actually causing people to get bitter and resentful and angry towards us because we are bitter and angry and resentful towards them. You always hope that someone will extend that open hand to you first off, and there's a lot of people in my personal experience who have done just that, and I'm eternally grateful to them. But for those who don't, for those who can't, for those who feel uncomfortable about it, then we should at least try and see if we can extend the hand of inclusion and friendliness to them rather than just write them off. So it's not easy, as I say, for someone who feels very vulnerable, very protective of the changes they're going through. And I'm not saying this is going to be easy, I'm not saying you can do this all the time, but it's amazing how many times when you actually give a little of yourself, if you allow yourself to be vulnerable with that person, they actually respond to that and will then make you feel less vulnerable and will give you the opportunity then to enter a dialogue where you both learn and you're both raised up and you'll both feel that it was a positive interaction rather than a combative one. I just feel that we should be trying just that little bit. I'll cover this probably again in more detail in another one, but I know that before my change, I was probably as ignorant and cautious and fearful of people in my new community. I didn't understand it. I had no real direct contact with it, and it made me feel uncomfortable. And if I'd had someone who took the time to actually give me the information that made me feel more comfortable, then hopefully that would have just put me more at ease, and then I would have had no problems dealing with, similar people in the future. And I think a lot of our fears and discomfort are just because people don't interact with kindness and with an openness to at least try and understand someone else's thinking even if you don't always agree with it and you can't accept it. At least if you can understand where they're coming from, there's a chance, like I say, that we can bridge the gap and meet in the middle. So that's my thought on the subject. I don't know if you agree with that, whether it makes you feel comfortable, uncomfortable. I'm just speaking from my own personal experience, and I'm hoping that we can foster the ability for people just to be able to talk with an open heart, with an open hands, with smiles, and just, again, encourage happiness and love. But anyway, thank you for listening again. I appreciate all feedback, any comments, like again, about how to make this better, other subjects you would like to me to cover or whatever, please do. The more the merrier. I really want this to be of most use to as many people as possible. And I don't know all the answers. I'm not saying I do. I'm still learning a hell of a lot myself. And I'm sure, as I said, thoughts of a changing mind, that maybe a lot of these positions will change with more information. I hope so, because that's just exactly what I'm talking about. The more information that you have, the more you're able to analyze things and reconstruct your world. You have your central truth, but you can change your attitudes. We all have that ability, and we make choices every second of every day, so we can do that at any time. So anyway, thank you again for listening. I really do appreciate it. Big hugs from me, and talk to you again soon, all right? Bye for now.